Welcome to the Strategy Sherpa Show, a series of organic discussions between hosts David Chavez and a variety of notable business leaders centered around their most significant failures and how they handled those challenges, so listeners can learn from their most teachable moments and apply the lessons to their organizations. Now, here's your host, David Chavez.
Hey, everyone. This is the Strategy Sherpa Show. This is David Chavez, and boy, do we have a show for you today. I've got a couple of colleagues to come along with me because we want to talk a little bit about some of the challenges sometimes our clients face, and they don't really see it. And, you know, on the Strategy Sherpa Show, what we're trying to do is we're trying to have conversations with people and where they have failed and how they overcame that failure. And so I decided to invite a couple of our team members on and talk a little bit about some of the clients we worked with over our careers and some of the things that they did to actually hurt themselves quite a bit. So we're going to be doing that today. So welcome, Michele Berry. Michele, good morning.
Good morning. And welcome. I'm happy to be here. Thanks, David.
All right. Tell everybody where you're at in the world.
I am in Arlington, Massachusetts, which is a suburb of Boston.
Okay. How's temperature there right now?
It's a little brisk. It's supposed to go up into the 50s later today, but it's a little chilly right now.
Okay. All right. So it's been a little cold. And then we have Preston Law with us. And Preston, share with everyone where you're located in the world.
Yeah. So I'm in Brooklyn, New York. And here it's, pretty much the same as what Michelle's experiencing in the Boston area. It's chilly and, today it's going to be cloudy, but yesterday it was really cold and sunny, and my body can't deal with those two things of it being sunny and cold at the same time. So I stayed inside.
All right. So sunny and cold. Well, I'm down just north of Austin, in a town called Georgetown. It was actually nice yesterday. It's about 85 degrees, 60 in the morning. So it was nice and cool. I won't rub it in too much, though. All right. So we were just talking about it right before we came on the radio show. All right. So just a couple of notes on things that are going on at Assured Strategy. We have my Kane Pekovic, one of our coaches. She is going to be doing a workshop or a webinar on how to coach employees for top performance. And this is a workshop to actually learn how to do the coaching. And so that's from 1 to 2 p.m. on the 11th. It's a couple weeks from now. And on March 28th, I am actually doing a scaling up workshop in Austin, Texas. So I'm actually doing the workshop in Austin, and Michelle's actually going to be joining me. She's getting ready to become a scaling up coach. So we're going to invite her to help us with that. And we're going to be doing that and focusing on the 4 quadrants of people, strategy, execution, and cash. And if we have a little bit of time at the end, we'll talk about that. But we like to get into the show right away. And so I'm not sure who wants to go first. Who wants to go first? You want to flip a coin, or do you want, I'll just choose. We'll go by an alphabetical order. Preston, you go first. All right. So let's start off with, why don't you share for us, what was that now? I'm sorry, Michele.
Reverse alphabet.
What's that?
I think you did reverse alphabet.
Oh, I did actually. Oh, geez, I wasn't even paying attention. Jeez. Yes, Michele, you're going to go first. Preston, you stand by. Sorry about that.
Okay.
I mean, my brain was going 100 miles an hour. Wasn't even thinking properly.
What alphabet are we in? So
yes, I'm still learning the alphabet. So give me a little bit of a break. All right. All right. So Michele.
Thank you, David. I have a really interesting story of a client I've been working with for a few years and been in conversations trying to help him understand the value of having a strategy and having a plan and a vision for the future that's well articulated both to employees and and beyond. And he's always just been too busy, too busy doing, too busy building. Built the company in the last 5 years from 3 million to 11 to after an acquisition now 38 million top line, right? Significant growth in 5 years. very busy in the work, doing the work, but very resistant to really taking a step back and thinking about the big picture and thinking about where he's going and what's the point of all of this. So earlier in the year 2023, he was approached by private equity. And if any of y'all are business leaders, business owners, you're probably getting the same thing. There's a lot of money on the side, and PE firms are approaching people left, right, and center. And they're like guys hitting on you in a bar, right? They have a lot of sweet talk, but who's going to go home and who's going to really, have a relationship with you? That's what it all boils down to, right? And what are they looking for? And what are you looking for? So as a business owner, my client was looking for, people with whom he could relate, as well as what was the valuation, what was the actual money going to be. Yep. And they were talking crazy money, this firm, and he went out to see them, and back to see the many conversations over the course of 2023. And he was looking at a more than 10 times EBITDA valuation, which is ridiculous for his industry. Just crazy money. He'd never been thinking of selling. He loves running his business. He loves doing the work. But when somebody throws money like that in those kinds of values where you're talking about significant life-altering valuation, and he's the sole owner, you just can't turn your back on that. So he's in these conversations, and they're dating. And as the relationship starts to get a little bit more serious, now the PE is signing NDAs and looking and doing some diligence on the organization. So the phone calls started coming less and less frequently. And eventually my client realized he's been ghosted by the PE firm that had been so hot and heavy at the beginning of their relationship.
Yeah, let me ask you a couple questions here, because ghosted means that they're not talking to you anymore. They just don't return the phone calls, or they don't return them for weeks on end.
They're not answering the calls anymore. They're not answering your emails anymore. Yep.
Yeah. What in the industry? What industry is this in? Can you share the industry?
So his organization does sort of it's
just industry. So let's keep it as
sort of manufacturing in the biotech space.
Okay. And then what are normal multiples that the businesses like his are being sold for? What, probably really? 4 or 5 EBITDA on a good side?
6 to 8. 6 to
okay.
8
a little higher.
High.
Okay.
But 6 to 8, but 10.
So he was getting
extraordinary.
What was that?
10 is extraordinary.
Okay. So he's getting a really high multiple, almost a 50% increase in the multiple, just because the PE firm wants to do business with him.
Correct.
Okay.
And a really good business model, extraordinarily successful through the pandemic, and maintained that success, and really successful with an acquisition. So, looks really good in terms of that story. However, you dig under the covers, and PE firms, they don't come to organizations wanting to take over and run you. They want an organization that is professional. They want an organization that can run itself. And so they look for indicators of what indicates that you're a professional organization that you can run yourself. Well, one of the key indicators is, what's your plan? What's your 3-year plan? Where do you think this is going in 3, 5? Where is this headed? What's your plan? And beyond that, how do you show me that you can get a plan and execute it, right? Show me that you've got a history of making a plan and working it through to success. Because then I believe not only that you have a plan, but that your having a plan means something, right? Because you've been able to make a plan and live up to the plan and bring it to life, right? That is value in itself. And so that validates the value. The absence, by contrast, of a plan means that they think you're kind of just winging it. And how do we know that just because you say you're going to do something means you're going to do it?
Yeah, that's correct.
Right? How do we know that just because you say you've done this in the past, means that you know how to do it again, or still, or next time, or for the future? Because when you don't have documented plans and methodologies for doing what you do, it could just be luck, right?
Yeah.
It could just be, there's no ability to trust that you as a leader can actually do what you say you're going to do if you can't provide that pathway. And so that really, really hurts the value of a firm.
What you're talking about, just to clarify these things for people who may not be very astute with these things, you're talking about having a plan that's laid out where you can actually show somebody, hey, here's a plan we created 3 years ago, and here's what we worked towards. And we've accomplished these things. And here's what we originally said we were going to do. Here's what we ended up doing, because it's never exactly the same, right? Because we're learning as we're going along, but it shows a pathway to our thinking. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Exactly. And it shows that not only what we're thinking, but one, that we are thinking, right? Two, how we are thinking. And three, how do we turn what we're thinking into reality?
That's
right.
Correct.
And then how do we learn from what we've done in the past in our efforts to turn what we're thinking into reality? How do we learn and grow and get better at this over time? Yeah. Right. And so that shows, and that's what you need, because that's what they're buying, right? When you're looking at a lot of value for your organization, you're looking at what's the value for the buyer.
Right. Right. So share with us. So they came to him, they talked to him about possibly doing a deal, and they started down that path of the courtship and relationship, and then the PE firm started to do due diligence, or did they give him an LOI?
They started to do a more serious diligence, wanting to see some things before really putting together an LOI.
Okay, an LOI, those of you who don't know, is a letter of intent. That's a letter of intent to purchase your company, and it sort of locks the parties into a relationship agreement. Not that anything's going to happen. It's just the starting point of making a transaction happen, because a lot of business owners think that they're going to sell their business, and 80% of the businesses that are created out there are never sold. And so when this starts to happen, we get an LOI and we start down this path. They did not get to that point. They ghosted him before then.
Correct.
And why did they ghost him before then? What did they see that he couldn't see?
It's more what they didn't see. Right? It's the absence of plans. It's the absence of, because they're asking for things, and the list of things they're asking for, there's some financial information that they want, and that's standard, but they're also asking for plans.
Right.
And when you don't have a plan and they're asking for a plan, you can't give them it. You have nothing to give them.
Okay. Well, and so what ended up happening to this guy then?
So they in their minds, they sort of walked away. So they're, but they weren't clear, and they didn't give him the feedback of why they were walking away, because they have a lot of companies they're courting. And so when they're done with you, they're kind of done with you without necessarily telling you why.
And they'll never tell you why.
They'll never tell you why, because they may want to come back and date you in the future when you've learned.
Right. Or legally, they don't want to tell you why, because they don't want to be in trouble or anything like that too. So
they're walking away, ghosting. And ghosting is literally not returning phone calls, not returning emails, just like, we loved you yesterday and now we want nothing to do with you. Right.
Yeah.
And he was like, just, and not for nothing, I can't tell you the amount of time and energy this CEO spent on this endeavor during the course of 2023. And
I'm gonna hold you right there. And I don't hate to do this, but we're on a live radio show, so we have to do this. And we're gonna take a break, and then we're gonna come back and we'll pick back up where you're leaving off. So keep it in your mind, Michele. We'll be right back. Preston, we haven't forgot about you. We're just doing our thing, and then we'll come back and do yours next. So this is Strategy Sherpa Show. This is David Chavez. And we'll be right back after these messages.
Welcome back to the Strategy Sherpa Show with David Chavez. Have a question for David or his guests? Join us on the show at 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Now, back to the show.
All right. Hey, everybody. This is David Chavez. This is a Strategy Sherpa show, and we're here with team members from Assured Strategy talking about some of the challenges some of our clients have had. But I want to talk about on April the 4th, one of the things we believe here at Assured Strategy is that we believe that clients should not have debt unless it's strategic debt. And we try to help clients get rid of that debt. That's one of the first things we do, because when they do that, their profitability shoots up quite a bit. And so one of our colleagues on April the 4th, Warren Sager, is doing a webinar on improving your cash position with 7 simple financial levers. He's going to be going through this cash flow story exercise and teaching you how to look at your cash a little bit differently. So Michele, we are talking about your client, had an opportunity to sell his company for a 10x, and he when normal is about 6 to 8. This offer came unsolicited to him, and then all of a sudden the PE firm ghosted him, and pick it up from there.
So, and as we had discussed, his absence of a strategy and his absence of having demonstrated how he got to where he got to and how he was planning to get to where he's going was really at the root of the PE firm walking away. And the amount of time and the amount of energy, the sheer literal hours he spent in meetings with them and flying to see them, and having lunches and having dinners and meeting all these different people from the PE firm, and then the amount of time and energy he put into just thinking about it and dreaming about it and planning for it and all of that. If he had spent just less than half that time, less than a quarter of that time, actually working on the strategy of his organization, he might still be able to be in conversations. Right? It just the unwillingness to step back and take the time, minimal amount of time, to focus on strategy and the pathway and defining that, clarifying that in the past, created this, yes, winging it, or his instincts are great. He's a great leader. He's created an awesome organization, but it's unsellable as it is.
Now he got this offer unsolicited, so they approached him, the PE firm did. Correct. And then you said that he had spent a significant amount of time and resources. And I want to say a few things before you respond to that, because I was a valuation guy for years, and I watched this happen over and over again, where people, when they start to get these start the activity of a possible sell, they literally check out on their company a little bit, right? And so you started talking a little bit about that right before break. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Sure. Well, as the CEO and the owner, when you're looking at a greater than $50 million offer that's going to put life-altering money in your own bank account, right, you put a lot of time and energy into that. Mm-hmm. And that's time and energy you're no longer putting into the actual business of your business, right? You're not working on the strategy of the business. You're not working on really any time and any effort put into this fantasy of this massive potential offer is time and energy that is left off the business. And you take your eye off that ball. And what typically happens, and what happened here, is you start to see some of the things inside the business start to struggle and suffer because your eye is off the ball and you haven't built the professional systems in the organization that are required not only to get the valuation that you want, but also to sustain the organization while you're paying attention to that sales effort. Right.
Yeah. And so I find a lot of business owners, what they do is they get so caught up in the sale. I've had so many of them over the time, because I've probably been involved in 150 deals in my life. And I have watched people go start to look at buying second homes, to buying other types of things, and they lose their focus in their company, and then they quit doing the things that they would do if they weren't selling, like the operations. They make the operation suffer. Oh, I don't want to buy that asset, or and then the deal doesn't go through, and they literally set their company backwards probably like 4 or 5 years, right?
Right. It's, I don't want to buy that asset, or in this case, I don't want to hire that person. They're really expensive. That'll detract from the bottom line.
Yeah, yeah. And then if the deal doesn't go through, they have lost these opportunities, and it's hard to get them back, some of them back. But thank you for sharing, Michele. We'll probably interweave that into a little bit of Preston stuff, because we're going to come back to this, I'm sure. So Preston, the alphabetically ordered first person. Let's get into yours, and let's hear a little bit about what your experience has been and some of the things you've learned.
Sure. Thanks, David. I've been, I guess I would say, accidentally fallen into being a process guru. And the way that I wound up doing that was just asking why. Why are we doing things this way? What are we trying to solve? And I find that, companies of various sizes tend to make the same mistake. They say, we need processes, we need to put something in place for all of the right reasons, where, okay, only one person knows how to do it. Let's get them to write it down. And that's a great first step. But after that, people don't go back and look at the process itself. And, most of maintaining that and keeping it going and keeping it getting better and better all the time is just off the shelf and not thought about, but they add things to it because somebody got upset. Inevitably, somebody got upset and said, I need to know about this. So a couple of things that I've had experience happening where people are doing reports that now nobody looks at.
Mm-hmm.
So one company had someone keying in data from a point of sale system into a spreadsheet that would go to another person who would combine all of the company's departmental spreadsheets into one. And then they would send that to their accountant, who would compare those spreadsheets to the point of sale system and then say to the owner, okay, the spreadsheets in the point of sale system match. And by the way, here's your nice graphs and everything that the point of sale system generates with the attachment of the spreadsheet that no one ever looked at. And, they were taking time every single day, hours of work to maintain something that no one ever looked at.
Yeah, that happens quite a bit.
Another instance was a software company who had a report that needed to be done per like ISO, and they were medical software, so FDA regulations and all this needed to be done. And someone had gone in years back and automated that whole reporting process, not needed anymore, but it was still part of the quality process. So the managers were saying that the person's name, change the names. That's Tammy's report. So we have to do the report for Tammy. And Tammy's sitting there saying, oh, the managers need this report. I have to make sure it's right and do my job the right way to give it to the managers. And nobody was looking at it. Nobody wanted it. Each side thought it was super important to the other side. And, I can go on and on and on about those sorts of things. And it really does tie into the strategy and execution on the strategy. As well, one thing, you have to show that you are able to execute on your strategy, but then the next step that you get asked is this being executed efficiently, and how is that impacting the bottom line? Which, sure, like Michele was saying, hey, we don't want to hire this person because it's going to impact the bottom line, but at the same time, if you're spending your resources, whether it's people, money, equipment, doing things in an inefficient way, that's going to be the biggest impact to your bottom line in really affecting not just the valuation of your business, but your ability as an owner to get to sleep at night.
Yeah. So one of the you've heard me talk about this, because I talk about this quite often in the firm, especially when we're out on clients. I talk about process erosion, right? Over time, processes get eroded, and you were talking a little bit about it. You sort of brushed on it a little bit, and Michele probably has a few good examples around this too. So we make a process and we create it, and we create that flow, right? And we help the client think about that and get that flow down. And then that flow becomes a process, right? Then we can write the details around the process and everything. And then what leaders do is one of the employees come and ask a question about the process, and they answer the question, not knowing what the real process says, because they didn't memorize every step of the 40 processes they manage, right?
Right.
So in this employee, this is their one process. And so they answer the question real quick, and they actually create another process in that process.
Exactly. And those things add up over time to just be extra work for people.
Yeah, and so what ends up happening is it's the eroding the original process that didn't have all these redundancies in there. So what you were talking about is redundancies in the process itself.
Right.
Okay. Am I thinking about that correctly?
Yeah. And so many times people forget about the last step of of process improvement or writing processes, and that is continuous improvement, managing the process, even in things on a personal level, like the last habit in the 7 habits of highly effective people is to, what they call it,
sharpen the saw. Sharpen the saw.
Sharpen the saw. Keep on getting better and better every day.
Right.
And that, if you can take enough time, like Michele said, enough time out of just doing and spending time on doing it better and better and better every time, you'll wind up being much more successful in your business and working less.
Yeah, I think this is probably one of the biggest reasons why business owners have to stay involved in everything, is because they don't have clearly documented processes. So people don't know what to do. So they have to ask questions. And the more questions you're getting asked as a business owner, that should be telling you that your processes probably aren't as effective as they should be. And then the other thing that commonly goes with processes is the lack of training on those processes. Like you and I are actually working with the client right now. We've documented and we're helping them learn how to actually do the processes. We're actually teaching them how to do it. We're not doing it for them. So this isn't a consulting engagement. This is a coaching engagement. But also we're making sure they understand the importance of training these processes, right? So not only are we helping them understand the process of putting a process together, but training it also. Michele, you had something on this?
Yeah. Well, so what I see with clients who aren't doing that, what they do instead is when an employee has a question or when there's an error or a problem, they add a layer of review from a more expensive person.
Oh yeah,
exactly.
So a higher up person who's further removed from the process and may not even know the process is now spending some amount of very expensive time. And so they add these layers of expensive higher up levels of review, taking them further and further away from actually the root of the problem, and costing more and more for something that really needs to be fixed much more at the process level.
Yeah. So, hey, we're going to take a break. We're a live radio show, so we're going to take a break. We'll be right back after these messages, and we'll continue this conversation. Take care.
Welcome back to the Strategy Sherpa Show with David Chavez. Have a question for David or his guests? Join us on the show at 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Now, back to the show.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. This is Strategy Sherpa Show. This is David Chavez, and we were just talking about mulching our yard. At least I was talking about mulching my yard. And we were trying to determine what was the best, doing the bags or having somebody come and dump mulch in your driveway. And Preston and I both are on the bag side. Michele thinks that it would just be easier to dump some mulch in the driveway and go from there. So that's the technical conversation we were in at the break. so just wanted to point out one more thing. Like I try to go over some of the events we have in May 8th. Ted Servata and I are going to do a scaling up workshop in Portland. So we're doing these all over the country. So if you're in a different part of the country, Austin isn't your thing, Portland isn't your thing, you can get on assuredstrategy.com /events, and it will take you to all of our events that we're doing. So guys, we were talking a little bit about process, right? And we were talking a little bit about process erosion, what I term process erosion, where processes are documented. Leaders ask questions about those processes, are asked questions. I said that incorrectly, and they answer them instead of directing the employee back to the process and ask them to look at the process. And if they have a specific question about the process, they end up answering those questions and actually create another process. And so about a year later, you have 20 variations of the process, and you no longer have a functional process any longer.
Correct. And and then the next thing that people do is they say, well, we need to make sure that people are familiar with what they're supposed to do as part of the process. And then they create a RACI matrix. And if people don't know what that is, that's RACI stands for responsible, accountable, consulted. I always forget this, consulted and informed. So rather than looking at why we're doing it, they try to create this massive matrix of, okay, if this is your job, this is the thing in the process that you're going to be responsible, accountable, consulted, or informed on. And I call the RACI matrix a not me list, because what people do is they look at that and they look for their job description and their the name of their job, and they don't see it anywhere, and they say, oh, that's not me. I'm not the one that's gonna do it. And so those turn out not to be all that helpful. But yet for a lot of process consultants, that's the first thing they do. And that's the thing that we're going to do that's going to solve the problem, rather than taking a step back. And like Michele said, well, all of these people higher up in the organization are now involved in building the widget.
Right.
Well, if that's what has to happen for your employees to do the things the right way, then you really have a much bigger problem in your organization around accountability. I call it pride of workmanship as well, that you're trying to solve by adding more people looking over everyone's shoulder.
Yeah.
So what I was going to say is when you talked about those little additional processes inside the original process that corrode the original process, what I find too is that different employees get different variants of that. So you also are losing consistency, because not only is your original process now messed up with all these variants, but because they're not written down and they're not trained properly, different employees are doing what they think is the right thing different ways, and no two employees now are doing the same thing the same way.
Yeah, and it's very well said. I think that people don't understand, and going back to your just a talk earlier, Michele, about selling your company, if these processes are really documented really well, and to Preston's point, they're being followed, the valuation of the company goes up significantly. I hear so many people out there about exit planning. Exit planning is probably important when you're getting closer to doing a deal, getting your documents in order, making sure that everything's in order in the right place. But if you want to learn about exit planning, get a strategy, have well-documented processes and a good training system. Your valuation will be significantly higher. And those of you who think that rule of thumb is the valuation, rule of thumb is the average. If your company is average, that's your rule of thumb EBITDA number. But if your company is better than average, you should expect a lot higher number. And so the difference, and you have to remember, to make up that average, there's a lot of people underneath that number too. So a lot of people don't think about that and never think about their company being one of the ones that is under. So very good. Very good. So so let's talk a little bit about do either of you have another example of a client that sort of Michele, whatever happened to your guy? Did he ever sell his company?
Oh, not yet. No, he's got to back up and, now develop a strategy, articulate his strategy, because he has ideas in his head. It's just not documented and it's not planful. So he has to now professionalize his organization. And really, I mean, I always recommend that if you run your business as though you were preparing to sell it, you will be running your business really, really well. And we talk about that, and that is not just having a strategy, and it's not just having good processes. It's also having a really strong and healthy culture, and it's really paying attention to the financials. And, we always say, revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, cash is king, right? You have to pay attention to all the elements of your financials and really understand how it all functions. So it's the blend of all these things coming together. If you do these things well, as though you were preparing to sell your company, then you have a great company, whether or not you sell it, right?
Yeah.
Whether or not.
And I love how you said that, because like I had a podcast last week, or a radio show last week, with Frank Martin from Las Vegas. He was a huge contractor in Las Vegas and did very well. And he talked about three-legged stool. But one of the things that he was talking about in that is to get the data, right? One of the things that he had talked about when he lost his first fortune is after he had lost his first fortune, he learned how to read the balance sheet and how important that really was, because a lot of business owners pay attention to the P&L and they think everything drives off of that. Well, the balance sheet is actually the thing that keeps the score. And I love how you threw in there culture and people. I think one of the biggest challenges, I've been a scaling up coach for 15 years now. We've, as a company, have been in almost 300 companies now, helping them. And one of the biggest challenges I see is the wrong people in the wrong seats. Somebody who's good helping the company get to this point is now blocking the company from getting to the next point. So the culture has to be in line. Good leadership has to be in line. Holding people accountable to advancing themselves has to be in line. And then, so all these things are working together. It's not, these things aren't separate from each other. That's what you were trying to say.
Exactly. They're all integral to a very successful organization, which I think is what business owners want. I don't think anybody starts and runs a company to not be successful, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
That's true.
Preston, did you have a little bit to add there?
Yeah, I really like the way that Michele said it, that, if you're running it like you're going to sell it, you'll be running it well.
That's
and right. I find a lot of business owners will say, well, I'm not interested in selling, so I'm not going to take the time to run my business well.
Yeah.
Which, if you say that back to them, they have a strange look on their face, like, well, no, I want to run it well. I just don't want to sell it. I'm like, well, you can do the same things that you would do to sell it. That means that you're running it well. They're not like separate entities or separate paths, just with a different end in mind.
Yeah, no, and I love how you just said that because oftentimes, because we're coaches and consultants too, but the coaching side of it, when you repeat back to clients some of the silly things they say sometimes, they just look at you like, did I really just say that?
Right.
Right, because the realization, the coaching is getting people to think a little bit deeper, and when you repeat back silly things like this that they say, they realize how silly it is what they just said and the way that maybe
Right.
they're thinking about it too. So I love that you brought that up.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
I completely
people will
press that.
say,
Go ahead.
people will say, "Oh, I'm too busy doing it this way to think about doing it a better way."
Right?
Yeah.
Which makes no sense, right? It's just,
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's that Covey's time matrix, right? Urgent and important, the whirlwind of the day is not allowing us time to work on the important, but not urgent. So because
Right.
it's not ruling my day, it must not be that important. So you were going to say something, Michelle, and I interrupted you.
yeah, I was going to say, what I like to advise people is that you want to be the company that your employees say, God, I love to work there. You want to be the company that your customers say, I love doing business with them, that your vendors say, I love doing business with them. Well, as a leader, how do you create that? Right?
Yep.
That's the company that's going to be thriving. That's the company that's going to be successful. And that's the company that's going to be valued more highly, whether or not you want to sell. That's irrelevant. But if you run it as though you want to sell it, then that's what you create. You create the kind of company that people love to do business with.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is the Strategy Sherpa Show. We're going to take a break and we'll be right back and we'll wrap this up for you. So have Michele Berry and Preston Law with Assured Strategy with me this morning. We're talking about some of the common mistakes we see out there with business owners and some of the things that they do and leadership teams with hurting the valuation of their company. All right. We'll be right back after these messages.
Welcome back to the Strategy Sherpa Show with David Chavez. Have a question for David or his guests? Join us on the show at 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Now, back to the show.
Hey, this is a Strategy Sherpa Show. This is David Chavez. Hey, guys, I want to share with you something. I went to lunch with a business owner down in Austin just this last week and and he asked me what I did because we were just talking as friends, right? I had been introduced to him through an organization I'm involved with, and I just went and talked to him. And I was talking to him, and he asked me what I did. And I told him that we were business coaches. And he goes, oh, so immediately he goes to and we were joking a little bit, and I was sharing with him. I said, oh, why did you say it the way you said it? And he said, oh, there's a lot of you business coaches out there. And I said, yeah, there are a lot of business coaches out there, right? Everybody who's left the company and decided to become a business coach, they strike out on their own and they become a business coach. And he said, he goes, but you sound a lot different when I'm talking to you. And I said, well, what do you mean? And he said that it was really interesting talking to me because it seemed like I knew a lot about running a business. I said, like, yeah, I've had 5 of my own, and this is the 6th one actually. And he was fascinated about that. And then he asked me what was different in our firm of coaches. And what I shared with him is the amount of training. Michele, you've just come into the firm not too long ago, and you're fairly well trained and have a lot of business acumen yourself. I mean, you've been around for quite a while, doing really good job working with people on the same things we've been helping them with. But what have you found as the difference of Assured Strategy and really utilize what we do with the coaches?
Well, I think it's a couple of things. One, I think it's getting some baseline training across the board so that all of our coaches have certain baseline skills and tools and levels of expertise, which I think is important so that we can deliver effectively, and that our clients can trust that whoever coaches is going to have a skill set that's going to be trained up throughout the organization. But the other thing is that each of us enters the organization with different pockets of expertise. And so what we're able to do is not only have this baseline, but we're also able to then say, well, my client has this challenge, and this other coach in our organization actually has really deep expertise there. So because we have these pockets of differing levels of expertise and different types of expertise, we have folks who can help our clients, across a much broader array of challenges. Whereas most business coaches, to your friend's point, they're just single, individuals hanging out a shingle because they can. And that's awesome, and more power to them. And, anybody working with a business coach is better than people not working with anybody. But that said, I think that we can deliver a more effective approach across an organization, not only working with the C-suite, but also working with the mid-level managers, because we have the personnel, we have the baseline training, we have the pockets of expertise and the talent and experience to help at all levels of an organization. So that's that's one of the reasons I was attracted to Assured Strategy, frankly.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause we really have a common way of working. So any of us coaches can come into the project at any point in time and sort of know what's going on because we have pretty good processes about the way we approach working with the client. Preston, what have you found?
I found that there's a lot of sharing between the coaches of what our expertise is. Beyond, okay, we have our good baseline, but then we know who to talk to or who to bring in to our clients. That's, something that's really suitable to their strength. And I really like that, because we're doing it from a way where we're all talking the same language. We all know, okay, this is what they're trying to do. Oh, Michele, you have a lot of experience in this area. Or should, oh, Preston, you have a lot of experience in this area. And we work as a team and bring our expertise together to help the client, rather than saying, okay, 10 clients, 5 coaches, 2 clients per coach, and and bill up, right?
Right.
Where are your billable hours? Those aren't terms that we use at Assured Strategy.
Yeah, we don't even bill hours, because I don't want the clients worried about cost. I just want to solve the client's problem. We come up with the project fee and stick with it, right?
That's
Right.
exactly, David, Preston, what you were talking about, that I really love about my time in Assured Strategy so far, which is, it's not about protecting your turf. It's about how can we best help the client, and who within our world can help us help the client the most effectively. So it's not about my own personal ego or my own personal turf, or this is my client. It's just not about that at Assured Strategy. It's about what the clients need and who can we help. How can we best help them, and with whom?
Yeah, we have a fast food restaurant we've been working with, refining their processes. So Preston's on it, working on processes. Kane, one of our coaches, is actually working on the training aspects of it, helping them learn how to train people. And then I am working with the senior leaders of the company, trying to help them get a little bit more focused on the longer term game. So there's 3 of us on it. And we do this on a lot of clients because I don't have all the expertise, or if I do, I don't have time to focus like Preston does on the details of a process. And so what we're trying to do is make sure that the client's getting the best that they can get to help them. And he was a little shocked when I told him about the differences. And he said, those are pretty notable. And I just wanted to bring that up because a lot of people think about coach and they automatically think about, somebody who's just calling themselves a coach. Probably our biggest problem with helping a client is the coach that was there before us. So, right. Because they come in, they don't have the experience. They're trying to help them with things that they don't have experience with. If we don't have the experience, we just don't do it. And we're constantly trying to get experienced people into our firm to cover a lot of the basis of the business. Any closing words or thoughts for our audience before we head off into the sunset for today?
I would just say that, the time you spend working on the business rather than in the business is what brings value to the business and makes the kind of business that you will love to run and that people will love to work with.
Yep. And Michele, tell them one real quick thing about you that no one would know.
Oh,
Like,
I'm a huge athlete. I play ice hockey and soccer, and I've won national championships in both sports.
yeah, it's always great talking to you
Wow.
because Michele usually joins a meeting and she just got done kicking somebody's rear on the ice skating rink. So, or it's not ice skating, hockey rink. Excuse me. That was a bad mistake there, Michele. Hey, Preston, share one thing because I love this about you. Share one thing about you.
So I'm a singer in a New Orleans funk band.
Yeah, I love it. All right. And you play quite often, correct?
Not as often as I would like to, but a couple times a year, and it's always great fun. The question is, does the band have more fun or does the audience have more fun?
All right. And with that, we're going to have to end it. It's time for us to go. We're a live radio show. This is Strategy Sherpa Show. This is David Chavez. Thank you for joining us.